I'm just waiting for everybody to come on. Did Vic disappear? Oh, there he is. Good evening, everybody. Everybody's unmuted.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Hi.
All right. I'm going to call this meeting to order since the entire school committee is here. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. The first thing on our agenda is public comment, and we'll be limiting that 3 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes. So, Kate, does anybody have public comment? If you do, raise your hand, please. I just see one, Kate.
Okay.
Mr. Hewitt, for the record, state your name and the town that you live in, please.
Peter Hewitt, Bristol.
You have the floor for 3 minutes.
All right, just a question on the subcommittee meeting this afternoon. There was a comment made by Michelle about there being 434 different curriculum programs on digital, and there would be 2 new programs added for 2022, which is diversity and filmmaking.
Correct.
My first question is, to what cost are these 434 digital programs to the town of Bristol, if any?
Mr. Hewitt, we'll make sure that we answer that when we go over the program of studies.
All right. Second question is on the diversity, the new curriculum program on diversity, realizing that diversity, equity, inclusion, systemic racism, there are very controversial topics in today's conversation. And I'm wondering on the diversity program, perhaps Michelle, if she's on, could answer the question. So what benefit, what academic benefit is the diversity curriculum going to provide to the students of Bristol Warren?
Mr. Hewitt, we'll answer that during the program of studies.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Okay, see you, Pete.
See you.
Anybody else have their hand up? All right. Then moving on. I need a motion to approve the minutes of December 14th, 2020.
So motion to approve.
Tara, second.
Second?
Carly, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. All right. I'm going to take this next agenda focus since I see Ms. Belisle here on the computer and start with the state of the school sports. This was a question asked by a member of the school committee, and I thought it appropriate to ask Ms. Belisle to comment on what we're doing with sports in the district.
Madam Chair, we actually have a very brief PowerPoint slide that discusses athletics. If you would allow me to go over that, and then we can ask questions of Ms. Belisle.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Bryce.
You're welcome. Rose and Ryan, could you load the athletic PowerPoint for me and start to display that, please?
Just give me a second, please.
Yep.
Can you block that?
So just to give all of our members of the community as well as the school committee information, this year, given the fact that we're in the midst of a pandemic, we are only operating at Mount Hope low and moderate risk sports. For the winter, that is basketball, gymnastics, ice hockey, indoor track, and swimming. Tryouts began as early as January 4th, the 4th with gymnastics, January 7th with other sports. There was some concern about whether or not you could have tryouts before students actually returned. And we made the decision that you could. The season actually, the window for the season is actually January the 4th, but the first competitions or games will not begin until the 19th. Next slide, please. At KMS, tryouts actually begin, and the sport that we're offering is basketball for girls and boys. The tryouts begin on the 19th, and I don't know when the season competition will actually begin, but Christy Belisle can answer that for us. And next slide, please. In terms of the safety protocols, and many folks will understand this, we did some of the same things back in the fall, that student athletes will be screened to enter practice and games, that masks must be worn at all times, fan attendance, there will be no spectators at practices or games. The only exception may be, and Christy Belisle and I have had this conversation, that there may be one exception for the parents of seniors at one day, and we will work through that with them. And then all students need a new assumption of risk for the 2020-2021 school year. And so with that, we can open it up for questions. Thank you, Rose and Ryan. And Ms. Belisle is available for questions.
One thing I did notice, Dr. Bryce, is indoor track and field is just for girls, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Sorry.
All right. Does anybody have any questions about winter sports? Okay. Yes, Erin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The reason that I requested that this be on the agenda was because I wanted to just make sure that people in the district were aware of what our safety protocols were going to be. I know there are a lot of outside sports organizations, town sports programs, etc. And I don't know what their protocols are. I know that it gets interesting, shall we say, because a lot of the kids overlap from those programs and organizations into our schools. So I just wanted to make sure that that parents and families felt comfortable, and students, with the fact that we will be taking this very seriously.
Yeah, Erin, so I would, can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I would just add on to that. So there are a couple other things that we've added in. So at the high school right now during practices for basketball, the benches are being cleaned in between the end of the school day when there's PE and then the first practice, and then being cleaned between whoever practices first on that day. So it does, rotate. So between the first practice and the second practice, and there is also a half hour in between for air changeover, and also so that those two teams don't sort of, cohabitate in the same space at the same time. Indoor track is mostly outdoors. Right now, we've, 40 degrees is actually sort of a dream to be running outside for them. So they're mostly outdoors, and they're using a hallway space that no one else is using, more than 6 feet apart, in order to do a lot of their stretching before and after practice, and to do their team sort of meeting beforehand. We have hand sanitizer stations with their water stations. So in the past, students usually used our water bottles that were washed in between practice, and we've in the fall we did the same thing. So there's no sharing of water bottles. They have to bring their own, but we do provide a water station for them to refill at, which is cleaned properly every night and in between the practices, and then it has hand sanitizer there, so they're being asked to sanitize their hands before they refill, and then again at the end. I was trying to think of, I know there was something else. It'll come back to me.
I have one more question with you. For you. I've heard that some other districts are requiring that their student athletes be tested. I don't know how regularly, but on a regular basis, and it's that 15-minute rapid test.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if there was any consideration given to doing that here.
So let me answer that. First and foremost, the district I've signed the district up to host an event. And so that would be an event where the entire school community, whether it be students or staff, could come out and get tested using the BINEX test. The question as to whether or not we would either expand and host events, testing events at individual schools is also a consideration, as is would we test student athletes. I had a conversation with Marianne Carroll, our attorney, who was working on language for the MOU with RIDO. That is now completed, and we expect to get that back either late today or tomorrow, and then I will make that decision. I am likely to suggest that as a first step that we test our student athletes that are participating in winter sports. It is consistent with what we are seeing in other East Bay school districts, and it is another way of providing additional assurance that while student athletes are participating, they're also going to be safe to be able to do it.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the item that was sent to us, you said that students who are participating on a high school team should not be participating on any outside teams during the high school season.
Correct.
Is that our rule?
It's not a mandate, Marjorie. We've been told we can't mandate that, but we are highly encouraging families and student athletes that if you are participating with us, that while you're participating with us, you are only participating with us.
Does anybody in the public have a question? Oh, Carly, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I just had a quick question too, Christy. So when you're saying it's not a mandate, are we asking them to sort of self-report if they're participating in any other sports that are not associated with school?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about student athletes, right, is if you're part of a team, most of the other people on the team know what you're doing. So it's not like you can't really hide out, you know? So again, when I say it's not a mandate, we're not going to kick someone off the team. But if we did hear, you know, that somebody was participating on an outside team and also with our team, you know, we would obviously speak to them. I think one of the big things about interscholastic sports and organized sports is that when they're playing, they're busy, right? And so oftentimes if they're playing with us, they don't have time to do some of those other things anyhow. And, you know, Dr. Bryce and I have talked at length about we sort of have some control when they're with us, right? We can tell them you have to, it is a mandate to wear masks. It is a mandate to sanitize your hands. You have to be temperature checked on the way in. Your coach is going to ask you these 5 questions. If you play basketball in your neighbor's yard, or you go play in, you know, a town league or hockey league somewhere else, we would hope that they're doing similar things, but we can't mandate that. So, you know, I think it's safer for our school communities if they're playing with us than it is if they're playing somewhere else, in general.
Thank you. I wanted to report so far, my son has participated in 3 practices for the swim team, and so far so good up at pods. I know that coaches have been really thorough. I know they're being tested. I know they're wearing masks every time they're not in the pool. So I just, for the community to know, I know that swim is going smoothly. I've been able to observe it. Thank you.
Thanks, Carly. Yes, Tara. Tara, you're muted.
I apologize. I got bumped off originally. And I don't know if this was already a question asked. I know that the gym, we cleaned out 2 of the gyms, but the 3rd gym, is that still used as the cafeteria?
Yes, so actually what we did was over winter break, we moved the gym 1 was the place where students were actually having lunch. We actually moved that from gym 1 to gym 3 so that it allows gym 1 and 2 to be open, the partition to be open, and girls and boys basketball can practice and have the full length of the court to be able to practice and to also host games, whatever limited games there will be.
So going on that, are we able to separate? So by having the third gym, would that mitigate some more concerns with safety, a wellness with JV, with separating more of the teams when possible? Are there other places to place the kids in the building, like the auditorium or another classroom, and open up that gym space so that we can spread the kids out a little bit more?
So my understanding is that that only one team is practicing at a time. Is that correct, Christy?
There is some overlap with JV and varsity, but the girls program and boys program are separated.
But the girls JV and the girls varsity are not.
Correct.
So that means that they're utilizing the gym at the same time.
That question. I think we're going to have to take that question and let you know that we'll get back to you by Friday with an answer. We're not going to be able to answer that right now.
Okay, I don't know if there's another space available in the building that is not utilized. That could be utilized for the purpose of the children eating lunch, or if the cafeteria can fit more kids. I don't know what our numbers are in the cafeteria as well. Are we meeting the space requirements in the cafeteria already? Have we exceeded them? So I would be interested to know that information as well.
Yeah, I think that we're going to need some time to get an answer for that because we spent considerable amount of time making the decision to move from Gym 1 to Gym 3 so that it allowed our high school to host games. And so that was the major consideration at that time. If you as a member of the school committee are suggesting that one of the considerations should be moving students from the third gym to another space in the building so that we could open that gym up after school, so that we could operate another team separated from the teams that are currently in Gym 1 or 2. I would have to say, it's one of those things where what's most important, and I think what is likely most important, is having a place for lunch, but we would have to determine whether or not we could move those students to the library, the auditorium, or the cafeteria. So we're going to need some time for that, but I'll get an answer to the full school committee by Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Vic.
Chris, question. On the boys basketball team to start off with, aren't there JVs that are also on the varsity?
There are no swing players in this year. So the same thing happened in the fall. We did not allow students to swing. And, I think in the fall, students struggled a little bit with it, but we were very clear up front. And we were very clear again in the winter that while last year, maybe you were a swing player, let's say, right? So a swing player typically would be someone that plays the majority of the JV game, but is good enough for us to start entering them in varsity as well. And we want to get them varsity ready. So they might play the majority of their minutes with JV, and then they swing up during a varsity game or match and play some of their minutes with varsity. So in COVID-19, we are not allowing students to swing.
The other question I have for you is, let's just suppose, all right, that there is a female that plays hockey for us.
Yep.
But is also on a select team, hockey teams, wherever, state hockey select team. Are we going to discourage that person, or is that person going to still be able to play? We're
going to discourage it, but that person would still be able to play. I mean, we are going to let them know. I mean, it's not BWRSD only. It's also the Rhode Island Interscholastic League. So students are being told this statewide, that obviously it's safer for the school community for them to choose. We understand that's a hard decision, but COVID-19 is hard all around. So, we want to keep the community safe and our schools safe first. And so that's the messaging for sure.
But they will be able to play no matter what on both teams.
We have not been told that we can mandate that
Right.
that they can't play with us. Correct.
I mean, and the truth of the matter is, most likely that player is an excellent player, because otherwise, why would they be selected for a select team?
Right.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Sarah, did you have a question before I go back to Carly?
I saw Karen too, Karen Cabral.
Karen, all right, I'm sorry, Karen, but you're muted, so.
Hi. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. So for the screenings, they're getting screened every day for practices, and is that just a questionnaire? Are they getting, is there any like temperature?
So their temperature is being taken on the way in. And then in
Okay.
addition to their temperature, so their temperature is only recorded if it's above 100.3, in which we would send them home. So the coach takes everyone's temperature, but only records in the case that a temp is high and we're sending somebody home. Okay. And then they're asked, there's 5 attestation questions that they're asked, similar to the questions that they answer or the parents answer during the day. But because they're not an adult, the coach asks them the questions before practice, and it's all logged. So in the fall, we use the same system. And in the case where somebody is exposed or thinks they were exposed, the school nurse is I'm able to download all that information for the school nurse and the principal very fast, and get that over to them so that they can see who was in attendance. If they weren't in attendance, why weren't they there? And coaches are following up. If you missed practice before, it was like, okay, well, we don't know where they are today, but we'll find out later. Now we're calling to make sure that they're not missing because they're sick.
Okay, and I just wanted to know about the cleaning. You said that the benches for basketball were cleaned in between. Is there a custodian there to do that for them?
Yes.
Or are the kids
No.
responsible?
No, the custodian came down with his backpack, and it has the hydrogen peroxide tablets in it and water, and he just walks by and sprays everything at 2:30, and then he walks through again at 5. And so then the next group doesn't come in until 5:30, and then it's done again at the end so that school ready for the next day.
Okay, sounds good. And one more question. I don't know if this is for Dr. Bryce or not. The 15-minute rapid tests, are they, I'm not sure what you said, are they available now, or we're looking into it? And if we're looking into it, will it be available, by the time the games start? I mean, I know practice is already starting.
So I've already made the decision that we're going to do the large scale community event. What we are waiting for now is for Rido to tell us that they have a date and they have supplies for that community event. Once we receive the updated MOU, I will sign off on that. And based on that sign off, then we will have the ability to test student athletes, as well as operate at the school based on some logistics that we have on our end, as well as they do. But right now, I haven't received any update that tells us when Rido is going to be ready to go. Okay,
so we're basically relying heavily on the screenings and the temperature taking for now.
Absolutely. That is probably the first line of mitigation strategy. The testing is in addition to those things. And even if once you test negative, you're still going to do those things every time you come to practice, every time you come to a game.
And coaches are really pushing with student athletes, and it took them a while to adjust in the fall, but I think they all have gotten the message at this point, that in past years, student athletes especially are asked to sort of play while they're sick. Not that that's our messaging, but I think it's commonplace for someone to come to a game has a cold, that doesn't have a temperature, but has, cold like symptoms. They might just come and watch practice from the side, and so that they don't miss any of the plays, things like that. And they are very clear that they do not come. So if you have any symptoms whatsoever, you're staying home.
Sheila.
Christy, the middle school boys and girls basketball,
Yes.
a lot of the middle schoolers, because it's not as obviously competitive until you get up to the high school, are in other leagues. So are they able to stay in those leagues and play at KMS? And will the testing be done at KMS as well, or are we just sticking to the high school?
No, let me answer the testing piece. Certainly, we would test at the middle school as well. All of these things would be with parent permission, and it is a non-invasive test. But I think more importantly, one of the things that I think Christy Belisle, all of our coaches, all of the administrators, we are absolutely concerned about students and their interactions, not only during the day, in terms of maintaining 6 feet of distance, but also potentially when they are participating in a host of activities outside of the school setting. And so while we cannot require it and we cannot prevent our student athletes from participating in rec league and travel team and AAU and all of these other activities, we will continue to share with parents and the students that we really hope that our student athletes would dedicate themselves just for this season to playing for the school team and not necessarily those other teams. We'll see how it goes. We will not prevent them from participating at the school, but it is something that we're gonna stress.
Yeah, I know. I understand what you're saying. I just think some of the other AAUs and like the other leagues, I think we're kind of assuming that they don't follow the same protocols. I think if you're a parent within that organization, you do get pretty much a detailed list, and you have to sign in, and like there's a pretty big rigor. I think if you asked those parents to, like, especially at the middle school level, I understand the high school level, but at the middle school level, it's not as competitive. So I think kids like to do multiple teams. And, but I think if you ask those parents to give them what the requirements are for those leagues, I don't think they would say no. I mean, we're assuming that all these leagues aren't following it, which isn't the right assumption, is all I'm saying.
Thank you. Carly. You're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. Someday I'll figure this out. I just wanted to reiterate what Mrs. Schofield sort of said. I appreciate that we're having this discussion just so we can be transparent with families so that they know what the expectations are, they know what the potential risks are, that we might have some other kiddos that are participating in multiple sports, and that parents and families should know this before they choose to engage in sports. So thank you for allowing us to have this discussion where we can kind of understand as a community and be able to make informed decisions that way. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody from the public have a question on school sports? If not, then let's get to
Erin has her hand up.
I'm sorry, Erin, go ahead.
I just have one more comment I want to make, and it's thank you. It's just that based on everything that has just been discussed and the fact that it doesn't seem like we can mandate, even though we are advising students and families to just play with us if that's what they're doing. It just seems to me that it is really important to seriously look into testing our student athletes on a regular basis, because while Sheila's right in that we shouldn't assume that other leagues are not following these protocols, we just can't, because we're not there and we're not the people mandating it. So it just seems to me that I would like to just see us look into at least these 15-minute rapids, because that's at least something that we can do as a district and a school board to ensure that, we're looking out for the kids here.
So Dr. Bryce, you'll get back to us with all that information later on in the week, right?
Absolutely. As soon as I hear from Rido.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to move, what?
I
She just said thank you.
Oh, sorry.
I appreciate Christy's become my translator tonight. Thank you.
I'm looking to the left, looking to the right, forgetting to look in the middle. But let's move on to the Mount Hope High School Program of Studies. And before they start, I'd like to say to Carly that was really a nice, I'm sorry I had to leave, but that was really a nice subcommittee meeting, and a lot of questions got answered. And I appreciate that Mrs. King and Dr. DiBiase were there, and as well as our third assistant principal, whose name escapes me right now, and I apologize for that.
Mr. Hanlon.
Mr. Hanlon, I'm sorry, Mr. Hanlon. Been a long day, but in any event, if you'd like to start, the floor is yours.
Yep. So thank you, Madam Chair. As Rose and Ryan set that up, I would just like to share two large points. Number one is that the program of study is required to be presented to the school committee and adopted by the school committee each year. And so we are bringing that. We first took it to the subcommittee earlier today, and now we're bringing it to the full committee for the full committee and the community to have an opportunity to really see what we are thinking about doing for the high school next year. The second point is the point that is really important to me as a high school social studies teacher and administrator and now superintendent, is that what we want for our high school is we want a robust, comprehensive list of courses that meet the core requirement identified in the BEP, the Basic Education Plan set forth by RIDE and the state legislature. But we also want a mix of career and technology education courses, as well as other electives that really give students an opportunity to have a multitude of experiences and to learn and to grow. So in response to the question about the question was specifically about this course, but I'm going to make the case broadly that all of the courses that are included in the program of study are intended to give students factual knowledge, help students to learn to conduct analysis and to become critical thinkers, and ultimately prepare them to become engaged citizens and lifelong learners beyond high school. And so that is really what we seek to do. And with that, I turn it over to Michelle King, our program of studies guru, and Dr. DiBiase.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bryce. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just always love having the term guru and, after my name. That's always a nice touch.
You are a guru.
What's that?
You are a guru.
Yeah, okay. So good evening, everyone. I am very pleased to be here tonight to be able to take you through this program of studies presentation for the 2021-2022 school year. That's a mouthful. The goal of the presentation really is to show you not only what the goals and objectives of a document such as the program of studies is, but is also to share with you the notable changes for the upcoming school year, as well as highlight some of the really wonderful opportunities we continue to have and offer at Mount Hope High School. I am certain there'll be questions. I'm happy to address questions at the end once I go through this fairly short slide deck for you. Okay. So the goal, a document such as the program of studies really is developed to ensure that we maximize the student's experience at Mount Hope. That students not only graduate with a high school diploma and core content classes, but are also afforded the opportunity to graduate with maybe some college credits, to graduate with credentials or endorsements, to graduate with advanced coursework in areas of interest for them. So we achieve this by ensuring that our document, our program of studies, really is the most concise set of information, the most relevant and up-to-date information, so that students and families are really aware and able to make really well-informed decisions. Next slide, please. So I put this up front. I want to just point out that our notable changes for the school year 2022 really are twofold. Our most substantial change you'll notice is really to the layout. For those of you who are familiar with our program of studies, you will have noticed that the layout and formatting of our career and technical education programs has changed significantly. And we've really done that for a few reasons. We wanted to increase the clarity, highlight the opportunities for credentialing and advanced coursework, and really to ensure we increase student engagement and interest in our pathways. Additionally, we are going to propose 2 additional or new courses for this coming school year. And we'll address those a little bit further on in the presentation down the line. Okay. So it's important to understand the process and how the program of studies is developed, or how it evolves over each year. It is a collaborative approach. This is a document that does change because the educational environment we work in changes. And so how do we inform the decisions that happen for those changes? This approach is done in 2 ways. There are formal meetings. It's a very formal process in which I meet with department chairs and teacher leaders to really sit with them. I usually start this process early in the year, October-ish, where we talk about and we really look at their departments. We look at course offerings. We look at course descriptions. And it's an opportunity then for them to sort of refresh and bring up to date any of the course descriptions, suggest any course additions, and any formatting changes. But then additionally, there are informal discussions that occur throughout the school year. And those discussions can be with school counselors, district and school-based administrators, teachers, faculty, staff. Those informal discussions also inform decisions made regarding changes for the following school year. So throughout this school year, I will continue to make notes and take information so that, as I move into the 2023 school year, we have new information as well. Okay, thank you. So to highlight some of the opportunities that we currently offer at the high school and that we're very proud to continue to be able to offer, we start with our RIDE accredited career and technical pathways. Both for engineering and business and finance. Additionally, we have included our computer science, our bioscience, and our architecture and construction pathways in the entirety of the career and technical section. Bioscience and architecture and construction are underlined. Those are what I like to say are in the pipeline. Those are new and proposed and in various stages of application and moving forward. Additionally, we offer, we have an opportunity for our students to engage in work-based learning opportunities. And these take place through our capstone courses and internships, through industry partners with real-world problems, service learning, and our school-based enterprise. Advanced placement courses at Mount Hope. Currently, we offer 20 advanced placement courses, and you'll find those listed on page 8. We are increasing our level of promotion for the All Course Network, which was formerly known as the Advanced Course Network. It is the ACN, you may see sometimes documented. It's a RIDE initiative, now expanded to K through 12. It's an opportunity for enrichment, opportunities for our students outside of the traditional school day. And so counselors work with their students to encourage them. The ACN offers not only credentialing, work-based learning, college courses, and other experiences that we may not offer and that can take place outside the school day. We are proud to offer a digital learning lab, which really allows us greater flexibility for student scheduling. It provides us an opportunity for two things. One, offers students an opportunity again for enrichment and advancement for courses that we may not be able to offer at Mount Hope. And being a science teacher, I always go that way. So for example, medical terminology. It's not a course that we offer, but it is a course of high interest. And so a student may take that through the digital learning lab. The other reason for the digital learning lab is for students who may find themselves falling behind in credit earnings. So students have the opportunity to enroll in online courses for credit recovery in classes that they may not have previously passed. For example, English 9 or any of the core classes. The digital learning lab is set up in which it uses content teachers. So students who require or take courses in English or humanities are going to be in a digital learning lab that is facilitated by an English or humanities teacher. Science and math, etc., the same. And lastly, I'd just like to add the fact that we really do offer a rich and wide range of elective offerings in all of our departments in science, art, performing arts, and alike. We really are fortunate in the diversity of our elective courses. Okay. So this will address a little bit about the question that kind of started us off too. So this references the 434 courses. So this slide is really to give us two things, a little bit of information about the courses offered, but also a little historical context. We do have, when you look into our student information system and I look at the courses that are within that system, we do have 434 different courses, the majority of which are in-person courses that are assigned to 9 different departments, from English to science to social studies, etc. So a large number of these courses are English 9, English 10, English 11, and so on. There are, however, a large number of courses that are the online courses, Edgenuity courses. Edgenuity is our online platform that we use. And so as students register or sign up for or select an online course like medical terminology, we create that in Aspen so that they can be assigned a teacher, they can be assigned grades, and it can show up on a transcript. So that's where those courses come in. And a lot of our more popular Edgenuity courses you'll find listed in the digital learning section on page 53. Historically, we've introduced 11 new courses over the last 4 years. And why do I say the last 4 years? Because that's this is my 5th year presenting. So that's the information I was able to gather quick. So we have introduced 11 new courses and from various departments, from performing arts to math to CTE courses and computer science. So the new courses have been in a variety of different departments. And again, we are now proposing 2 new courses for the school year of 2022. Next slide, please. Okay, and so here are the 2 courses that we are proposing for the new school year. The first of which is Diversity in America, and you'll notice they're kind of they're highlighted in a different color, and that's because I did link in Diversity in America. It's linked to sort of a 1-page description, sort of the ideology of the course, where it came from, how it was developed, and the standards mapping. That's linked to the content standards by which the course is developed and designed. And you can see the description there. The second course we're proposing is filmmaking. And in fact, it's really not necessarily, it's new in design. However, it's really taking 2 courses that existed and combining them into one new and improved course. And you can see the description there as well. Okay. So course selection in our master schedule, I think it's really important to note that the communication of the program of studies is effective, and timely communication of the program of studies is essential. And really that's because it ensures a smooth and well-informed course selection process. And we typically anticipate that beginning in February. Because we usually anticipate an adoption of the program of studies by the end of January and a movement toward course selection early February. Course selection, we want it to be as informed and smooth as possible so that we can develop the best possible master schedule. Student selection is at the center of our master schedule development, which really keeps the student at the center, and then we develop the number of sections based on those selections. So that's kind of, they're really intimately tied between program of studies, selection of courses, and schedule building. Next slide, please. And so what does that campaign of communication look like? It really starts with you all, school committee presentation, sharing any of our new concepts, new ideas, new programs, and adoption by school committee. We then do grade level presentations. Counselors will present to grade levels because there are really tend to be very specific grade level needs for course selection. And so their presentations are tailored to that. We do a presentation at the middle school where our department chairs and school counselors will go there and share information about programs, pathways, etc. That is typically followed by our informational meeting. That's an evening event where we host families to come into Mount Hope, meet with the school counselors, and we do a presentation for families so that families hear the information that their students have been hearing. We use our mass communication as always. And then I save the best for last, right? The individual one-on-one meetings with the school counselors, I think really is sort of the essence of what we want to get to, because that's the time when the student really has an opportunity to sit and discuss in a very private and intimate setting. This is my 4-year plan. These are my goals and aspirations. How do I get there? And so that's the counseling process that takes place each year once all of the rest has been, those pieces have fallen into place. And so that's it, start to finish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody on the committee have questions? Yes, Carly.
I just wanted to reiterate to Michelle and Dr. D and Miss Lyons and everybody that had their fingers on this, what a lot of work it is. And we appreciate it. It was very thoughtful. I thought it was a great presentation. The members of the subcommittee and the majority of the school committee had the ability to get to hear this twice. So now I really know in a span of just a couple of hours. So thank you again for being willing to regurgitate that twice. So
was it better the second time? That's the question.
But thank you very much. I'm very excited about our new courses and seeing how the year progresses. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it was very good both times, and I saw it both times, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that.
Anybody else have any questions?
I see Victor.
Yes, Mr. Cabral.
Yes, Michelle, I just want to say it is nice to see that you have Dr. Lyons on board now to help you with the career education. I haven't met her yet, but it's nice to see that we have a person who has that kind of expertise. The other thing is, thank you. And the other thing, Michelle, is it possible for the school committee to get a copy of your first run of selections? Meaning,
so you mean once the schedule's built, that first tally count?
The request, not the schedule, just for the request.
Right.
So, Mr. Cabral, before we answer that, I guess the question would be, what question are you trying to answer?
Because as a person that's on the school committee and a person who's going to make a decision for some budget designs, I want to know that we are going in the right direction by the selections of courses, because that determines the amount of teachers that we need to pay.
So you know what we can do? We can do two things. Number one, and I didn't get a chance to say it here, but I will say it. One of the things that we have is a limit on the minimum number of students before we can run a course. So what we can do is give the entire school committee high-level data that shows the minimum number of students that have signed up. It's got to be over 12 in order for us to have a course operate, and we can provide that once students have signed in. The other thing that I think answers your question is we can identify the courses that we are running for the next school year. Because although we have 436 courses, all 436 of those courses may not run next year, right? So you would get two charts. You'd get a chart of, here are all of the courses that are going to operate. Out of that 436, it might be 212. And then out of those 212, here are the number of students that signed up for those courses. And here's the minimum number of students per here's how many sections we're going to run. Here's the minimum number. That is something that we can provide to the school committee. I don't think we would have it probably before end of February, maybe early March. When are they gonna, is that too early, Michelle?
That's too early. I would say for us to have a really true sense of it, and the reason I say true sense is because we want to make sure that we have the majority of the selection sheets back and entered. I'd say probably second week of March.
All right. So then,
and that's being conservative. It could be.
Then let's say that we would maybe, if Madam Chair, if that's something that you would like us to provide, we could provide that by the end of March.
I think that you could have it available in the admin office if anybody wants to go and see and make sure, rather than printing that all up.
Maybe I should address this in a different way. I am aware that I am one of 9, and I'm just going to go through the chairwoman of the school committee to ask her to request that we get a copy of the selections, the first run of the selections of the students, so that we can see what they did select as to the fact of what they ended up getting in the end. So I'm looking at to know what they select, and then afterwards we will look at as what we're going to run, because of the fact of how many teachers we're going to need.
Okay.
Understand, Marge?
Yeah, I get it. But I would suggest that anybody who would like to have that, any school committee member who would like to have that, please let Dr. Bryce know. Because isn't that a lot of pages?
No.
We will do our best to condense it down to a few pages. We'll give charts. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Is that okay, Mr. Cabral?
Yes, as long as we get the first run of selections. I think Michelle understands what I mean.
I do.
Okay. I'm not sure that I do, but if you're okay with it, then I'm okay with it. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Tara. You're muted.
It's very loud over here. I have to stay muted. The first thing I want to do is say thank you with the new CTE program, the construction program. My question is, what is the difference between what is currently running now and what will be offered in the fall? It looks like it's the similar classes, but the end of it, there is an opportunity to be certified in a home building industry certificate. So I wanted a little bit more information on that.
Michelle or Nicole?
So Tara, can I ask just a clarifying question? You're talking specifically about architecture and construction pathway?
Yes.
And your question is related to the courses in the pathway and then what the credentialing is?
So it appears from looking at it that the courses are similar to what is being run now. Is that true?
So the CTE courses, the 1, 2, 3, the 4 courses that are there in the pathway are courses that we currently offer. They are now just like our other pathways, courses currently offer, but strung into a string of sequential courses to complete the pathway. Dr. Lyons, maybe you can speak to that a little bit more if you would like. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're hi everybody, by the way.
Welcome, welcome.
And this is Dr. Lyons, for those of you who hasn't met her yet.
So thank you for the question, Tara, about construction. So currently, the Rhode Island Department of Ed, in order to get a program like certified, you have to meet certain requirements. One of them is a 3-course sequence, and there's a certification. And you also have to have, the students have to earn work-based learning. So the sequence, Michelle definitely was correct in saying that the courses that we have now are similar to those that will be offered next year. And then there is a certification that has to be put in place. And if the student takes those, at least the 3-course sequence, plus passes their certification, earns their 80 hours of work-based learning, they will earn their industry credential on their diploma. And I'm currently talking with Casey from Apprenticeship RI, and they have a program specific for construction certifications and apprenticeships for students interested in construction technology. So I'm actually meeting with her next week, and I'm really, really, really excited to work with her and hopefully get some new opportunities for our students.
I'm very excited to hear that. That's a great addition to this.
Good.
My other question, so in OSHA 10 will now be included then, if I'm reading this correctly, or will students have to seek OSHA 10 on their own?
So I put that together, meaning students will receive the OSHA 10 training like through their coursework. And that's, I believe, the OSHA 10 safety training.
Mm-hmm. We've offered it previously at Mount Hope High School.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the last few years we have not. So that's why I'm curious if that will be coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, I'm very happy to see that. My other question was
hang on a sec, Tara. I think Dr. Santa had something she wanted to add to that discussion you were having with Dr. Lyons.
Thank you, Mrs. McBride. I just wanted to add that Ian Garrity has gone through the process to become a trainer for OSHA 10, so we will be able to offer it to all of our students in the CTE pathways right in the school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. I just saw her wanting to say something about that.
No, that's great. The other question I had was about macroeconomics. So I noticed that in the social studies program, we eliminated the macroeconomics AP course, and we did add the diversity and culture class. So my question is was it because we do not have a number of students we don't have the 12 minimum students taking that course? I just would like a little bit more information on that.
So I will say that that was noticed during subcommittee, and what, not that specifically, but related to another course. We have had conversations. Do we remove macroeconomics? We haven't offered it in the last couple of years. Do we take it out of the program? Do we leave it in the program? And I think we've kind of vacillated back and forth on those conversations. And it appears to me when I look at this that it got pulled, but it didn't get pulled. So we have to make a decision one way or the other. We left it in the table, but we didn't pull it out of the course descriptions. And so there is no official, we removed it. It's just, we weren't consistent in what we did. So the short answer is it's not officially been removed. And so I think when I look at it still being in the table and it not being something we're saying we're pulling out of the program for this year, the course description will go back in. I will say the enrollment is not there, but it is one we will put, I will put it back in for this year.
Okay, thank you. And so my third question was the answers that Peter Hewitt had asked at the beginning of the meeting, and one of them was the cost of the digital programs. What is the cost for those programs for our district? Marge had said that would be part of the discussion at this point.
So Dr. Santa, do you want to talk, my estimation of that question is really, I think, do you read that question or hear that question as the Edgenuity platform itself and the cost for the district?
Yes,
because that would really be the only cost of the online.
That's, I believe, what the question is. I think that there was a misunderstanding of the total number of courses, which most are in-person courses, but then we also have an Edgenuity program that gives students access to additional courses that we're not able to offer. And I don't have the cost of that program right in front of me. We'd have to get that to you.
That's fine. That works for me. And that's what I think Mr. Hewitt was referring to. I think the statement is possibly that we have the opportunity to offer that many classes, but in fact, in reality, we don't offer them, but they are there if somebody wishes to take one. And that's a different kind of offering. And I don't remember how much that platform costs either, but we can find that out.
And if it would help the committee, I can pull the online courses out of that number, and get that to you when Dr. Santa sends you the Edgenuity cost. I can also send you the number of online versus in person, if that helps to clarify for me.
Michelle, if you would give that to us, we have follow-ups, and we'll provide the follow-ups to the school committee by Friday.
Yeah, I definitely, I think that'll help clarify things.
I think it will too, King. I agree with you, because there is a big difference between what's offered for the BEP and what's actually offered online. So thanks. Anything else from anybody? Anybody have any questions? Yes, Nikki.
I was at the subcommittee meeting, so I was able to get into my more granular questions, and I promise, Michelle, I won't repeat them all for the sake of your sanity. I just wanted to, again, thank everybody involved, and Dr. Lyons, I'm looking forward to meeting you also in putting this together. It is truly impressive, the scope of opportunity and the diversity of opportunities that we're able to give our students. What's also impressive is how this is continually evolving. We're showing that we're responsive to the needs of our students and to the needs of our sort of society as we move along. The one comment that I would sort of question or statement that I would like to bring to the whole committee as well as to the community as a whole is on page 9, where it talks about the course levels and performance expectations. Again, we discussed this at subcommittee. If someone wants to discuss it again, that's fine. But I just wanted to mention that in my mind, the sort of title of particularly the college prep courses, I think is a misnomer. And I think it might give people the impression that we're not focusing on our students who do not choose to go to college just purely because of that title rather than because of the courses that we're offering. And we did discuss it, and I know, and we talked about looking at this maybe for next year about, you know, some language that addresses all of our students more, and that is maybe a more accurate descriptor of these levels. So I just wanted to sort of repeat that one point for the purposes of the rest of the committee. And thank you all again.
And Mrs. Piper, that's absolutely what you're supposed to do. If you have questions that you want all of us to think about. And that question was asked last year, and I believe the year before, and short of calling it English 9 and English 10, they added that level. So if they can come up with something that's a little more creative, I'd really be interested in hearing it. But up till this point, that's what they've used. However, I understand your concern about using the word college. So
I think we can come up with something. If this is the 4th year, I think we're a lot of brains. I think we can work something out. So I hope we continue this conversation for sure.
Well, remember, we're not approving it tonight. We're just listening to it. We'll be approving it at our business meeting. So at the business meeting, we'll get more feedback on some of the things that we've presented to the high school staff this evening. So I think that it's important that everybody knows what your most important concerns are. And I do remember you talking about that. And I welcome you talking about it here. Carly, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to support Mrs. Piper in her desire to kind of explore ways that we can relabel this to make it kind of a more accurate description. So the community can see as a whole that we're taking care, as Mrs. Piper said, of our entire kind of student body, not just the ones that are bound for college. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Karen. So
I wasn't at that prior meeting. Just a quick question. The Edgenuity, is that self-directed by the students, that online, or how is it?
So it's billed as a self-paced, self-directed online platform. However, the way we've designed it with content teachers facilitating the classes, those teachers, the preparation and instruction that they do is really goal setting, setting timelines, checking in on progress. So as self-paced as it is, in the sense that they can work on these things at home, on the weekends, at night, they also have a teacher who is checking in, assuring progress, monitoring, and setting goals with students. So it's a little bit of both.
And the teacher also offers additional support as needed, or kind of reteaching. If a student is struggling with a concept, the teacher will also, work with the student one-on-one to offer some additional support and instruction.
And then it's graded by the assigned teacher?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. And my other question had to do back with OSHA, the OSHA 10 that we were talking about. Will the students, are they just learning the skills and the knowledge to acquire that accreditation, or I'm not even sure, is there a test that they take and then they are certified or whatever?
Yes. So the students will not only go through the actual training for the certification, but they will be able to test and take and actually get their OSHA certification certificate. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mrs. Villard.
Thank you, Marge. I just wondered roughly how many students take advantage of the Edgenuity classes?
So we have 5 sections running, probably. That's a tough number to ballpark for you. I'd be pulling something out of the air. I don't know if Dr. D has a better guess on that. We are also, we run it during the school day. We also have students who utilize it after school. So in total.
I can try to look up the numbers from last year for my end of
Yeah,
year.
why don't we do
Add that
this?
to Friday?
We will add that as a follow-up.
Yeah. I just don't want to guess and be way out.
So we'll provide that number on Friday.
We use, and the other tricky part of that is that we often have students that will maybe in some type of a credit recovery program where they've got a few different courses that they're enrolled in. They might not necessarily finish those courses by the end of the year, and will continue working on them through the summer and possibly into the next school year. And so it's utilized, as Michelle was just saying, in various ways. But we do have data that we can pull from the end of the year last year that will say the total number of students. We also have students that are enrolled, they complete a course, and now they don't need to be in that section anymore, so we'll pull them out. One of the perks of the Edgenuity platform, in that it is independent, a student can go through it at their own pace, and there is a suggested pace. If a student opts to finish, to go through it on a quicker basis on their own time, they can finish it sooner rather than later, and which also helps with the acceleration and credit recovery as needed. But we do have students that could, will finish the course before the end of a semester. Then, we unenroll them, and so the enrollment changes throughout the course of the year.
Okay, and so there are students that use it for credit recovery and for accelerated enrichment, advancing faster. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Tara.
The follow-up question on the Ingenuity classes. Is it college only, or is it the enrichment classes or the credit recovery classes? Are they academic only or college driven only? Do they offer any trade certifications or trade opportunities in this Ingenuity program?
I'm not familiar with anything from a very specific trade perspective. I do know, like I mentioned medical terminology. Well, that, where that could be, lead towards something in transcription or those types of things. But from the course catalog, most of the courses, if I'm not mistaken, and I mean the Edgenuity course catalog, if I'm not mistaken, most of them tend to be in the core content areas, electives. There are some honors levels, as well as standard level courses. And I do believe there are some AP courses as well.
Okay. I'm thinking like CNA program or something.
Right, I know. And that's why I'm not aware of anything like that. That might be something that we would look at the ACN for, to see if there are things like that in the all course network. So we might drive a student in that direction versus online.
Yes, to add to what you just said, Michelle, the oftentimes the trade oriented courses need to be a little bit more hands-on.
Right.
And that's where the all course network comes into play, where they do often have some very nice hands-on courses that and programs. So for example, you just mentioned CNA. There is
Oh,
I lost you.
We lost her.
She's muted.
But
Deb,
she's
you're
going.
muted.
No, yeah.
I'm going to text her.
Yeah, text her because we just lost our sound.
Oh,
back. Deb?
My internet connection is bad. I'm going to turn the video off.
Yeah, we kind of lost you there for a sec on the CNA.
So the ACN network classes, can you also get us a number of students that utilize, if you're going to do a follow-up on the Ingenuity classes, can you do a follow-up on the ACN coursework as well, and let us know how many students in the past have taken advantage of that?
Sure. It's a much smaller number, and that's a lot easier number to grab. Currently we have, I think, 3 or 4 students that have just signed up for the next semester.
Okay.
So they're starting.
And just so that you know, that you all know, one of our goals is to increase enrollment in the ACN and the All Course Network. As we are continuing to promote it, learn more about it, they're expanding it more. One of our goals is to increase student participation, because it's got such a huge benefit to students between either just the experiences, or many of them do have certifications attached to them, and or college credits attached to them, as well as high school credit for various courses. So one of our goals is to continue to promote that with families and with students, to have them take advantage of those opportunities.
And my final question is cost. I believe I heard mention that the cost for some of these courses go to the student. If that is the case, what's the average cost for a student?
So there is no cost.
Okay.
So for the All Course Network, there is no cost. That's free to the student. That is grant fund. That is through the state. It is completely free.
And the Ingenuity, so somebody had said something about it being self-paid?
Self-paced.
Oh, self-paced. Okay, sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
All right, are we good, folks?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. And really, it's nice to see you all here. I want to thank you for taking out most of your afternoon to come and talk to us in the 2 sessions, but it is important.
Absolutely.
And we
Our
know
pleasure.
we know that you work really hard, all of you, to put it together. And so we're much appreciative of the time that you spent. And for the rest of the school committee, know that in 2 weeks at our business meeting, we will be voting on the program of studies. But in the meantime, Dr. Bryce has some answers for some of the questions that you've asked. And if you have any more questions that you think about after this meeting, don't hesitate to send him an email so that he can include it on the Friday packet. And I'm looking at high level numbers, like how many children avail themselves of the programs. I'm not really concerned so much with specifics as we have 50 children who use it, or we have 20 children that use it, or we have 4 children that use it. And I'm really interested in seeing how it's used, and if it's of benefit. That question was asked before, because we used to have it a different way. We used to have a different program, and we'd switched programs, correct?
You're talking about the online platform.
Yeah.
We used to have an additional online platform, Virtual High School. So we actually utilized both at one time. And again, that's just in my tenure here at Mount Hope. I don't know if there was something prior to me.
No, that's what I was thinking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to my knowledge, as long as I've been here, we've only used Edgenuity, and we did have Virtual High School. And I believe that you are correct in way back in the day. I think that the first program that they started to use maybe was Play-Doh, Play-Doh Learning before.
No, I'm referring to the Virtual High School.
Okay.
And I know that there was talk about not being enough participants in that particular arm of the platform. So I'm just curious to see how many children are invested in those platforms now. That's really where I was going with all that.
Awesome. And it's important to note too that they utilize the platform at the middle school as well. I don't know the extent that it's utilized. Diane might have more information on that, but I do know that they use it quite a lot at the middle level as well.
Well, I think I'll be talking to Dr. Bryce about the possibility of having a workshop that covers all these ancillary things that happen in our school districts, because I quite honestly didn't know that we had it at the middle school. So we'll discuss that and bring all that information back to everybody. in the next coming months.
Awesome.
All right. Now, the third thing on our agenda focus is the COVID-19 update, which I asked of Dr. Bryce because some things have changed since the last time he reported to us. And I thought it was important for all of you to hear what those changes were. So Dr. Bryce, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rose and Ryan, can you pull up the COVID slide
Yes,
deck?
I have it, Dr. Bryce.
Thanks, Rose. So as we get started, I would just like to share with the members of the school committee as well as the broader community that as we work to adjust, and move to the first slide, please. As we work to get through the details of working in a COVID environment, one of the things that we always said is that we needed our students and our parents and guardians to be flexible. It is clear that we also, as school leaders and other staff, also have to be flexible as the guidance changes and we are required to make some different decisions. And so what we're going to talk about today are really three significant areas. We're going to talk about what we're doing in terms of quarantining based on the new guidance from the CDC. We're going to talk about the testing that we've actually mentioned a little bit as it related to athletics, but we'll go over that again. And then we'll talk about where we are in terms of the vaccine, as I'm a member of the state's vaccine distribution subcommittee. So with that, let's go to the next screen. We remember that our priorities, number one priorities, has always been health and safety of students and staff. The current protocols that are in place include daily screening for students and staff. And so we just need to remind moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles and guardians to make sure that we're doing that before students are leaving home and that they are completing that attestation, that all staff and students are wearing a mask and maintaining social distance. One of the things that we talked about and that we had to address was making sure that even staff, when they're having lunch, that they are maintaining distance, because RIDO, while the guidance says one thing, their practice has been that if you've got large numbers of individuals, even in rooms 6 feet apart, when they would notify us that there's a close contact, they would then, out of an abundance of caution, take even a larger swath of the classroom or the teacher's lounge, because they just wanted to be extra careful. So we just want to make sure that we, to the best of our ability, maintain the social distance, keep 6 feet apart. If we're talking, students are talking during lunch, that they're talking in muted tones, no loud, conversations taking place. We also know that we have completed all of our ventilation testing, all of the upgrades, numerous upgrades to our HVAC system. And we found that our HVAC systems, when operating at their fullest capacity, in many cases provided the maximum, provided the minimum number of air changes per hour, and that we added air purifiers over and above that so that our classrooms could be safe. And so we didn't put it in the slide, but we've already shared it. It is perfectly safe for all of our staff to close their windows. And as a matter of fact, closing your windows, closing the doors actually helps the air purifiers to work more efficiently and effectively. And then quarantine and contact tracing protocols continue to be something that evolves as RIDO gets more information. Next slide, please. Having said that, RIDO has updated the quarantine guidance. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about on-site testing and the vaccine update. Next slide. So the updated guidance really talks about close contacts, must quarantine at home for 10 days from the last time they were in contact with that infected individual. This is different. It used to be a 14-day quarantine. So if you look at the bottom of this particular slide, they talk about the 14-day quarantine is sort of the gold standard. You can do a 10-day quarantine, or you can do a 7-day quarantine with a negative test, antigen or PCR, on day 5 or later. They also have given school districts the ability to make decisions based on what we're seeing in our own communities. And so working with our school nurses, we've made a decision. Next slide, please. So we made a decision based on the data that we had that a 10-day quarantine without testing actually provides very limited exposure or risk. And so as a result, we actually think that is probably more appropriate than a 7-day quarantine with a negative test on day 5, right? So the risk of transmission, about 5%, the upper limit is about 12, whereas for the 10-day quarantine without testing, it's about 0.3%. And so we know that is important. Next slide. While we are working to keep everybody safe, we also recognize the challenge of staffing buildings, keeping classes and students in school when there are close contacts. And so this is a challenge that not only we're facing, but all other school districts in the state are facing. It's one of the reasons why we had such a large window for distance learning, putting all schools back on distance learning, just because we knew we were going to experience an uptick in transmission. So RIDO doesn't actually dictate which quarantine options school or districts choose. So we actually had a choice. We could have stayed with the 14 days, which is technically okay, but we actually believe that the 10-day option will provide us with the level of safety and security, and it is something that is permissible by the CDC and by RIDO, that we are going to require the 10-day quarantine for close contacts. So what does this mean? It means that we're also going to take a look at this data on a weekly basis, so that we can make sure that if the rate of transmission in our area decreases significantly, then maybe we would be more comfortable with the 7-day quarantine. But for right now, as a district, we are making a decision that we're going to have a 10-day quarantine period for close contacts. And so if parents and members of the community are contacted by RIDO to be told that they have been a close contact or their child is a close contact, RIDO should make sure that they are reminding you, well, here's what the range of quarantine is. It's anywhere from 7 to 14 days. Your school district will make a decision as to the number. We've made a decision that the number of days is 10. Next slide, please. As we shift to testing, just as a follow-up to what we had talked about earlier, as a district, I've already signed the district up. We're going to do the community event. We also are going to sign the MOU, which our school committee attorney has just finished negotiating with RIDO, so that we can do testing at schools as well as testing of athletes. And as soon as we get more information, we will have that. Next slide. And this just gives a detail of the two options. We're actually going to do option 1, option 2, and then we want to have a focus on our student athletes potentially. Next slide. The key bullet on this particular slide is that we are still waiting for RIDO to give us dates. As soon as they give us dates, we will be able to update that. and we will share that in a community notice to everyone. Next slide, please. Then we start talking about the vaccination process. And if our members of the community, members of the school committee have been watching the news, we know that across the state, we have been given a number or a quantity of vaccines. Right now, we are working through the first group that is able to get the vaccine. Luckily, in the discussions as the vaccine subcommittee, distribution subcommittee was planning this, school nurses were included. All of our school nurses have received their initial dosage, and they are planning on receiving that in 21 days or 28 days, depending on whether they receive the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine. What I would like to share with our school staff is that I have been advocating for not just our staff, but school staff all across the state to be included at the very start of phase 2. And it is something that we will discuss, but we do not believe that phase 2 vaccines will begin before sometime in March. So we still have the rest of January and February, unless something changes with the new administration. More doses of vaccine are provided to states. And then at that time, we would be able to move the timetable for completing phase 1, all of the individuals in phase 1, and make a decision about phase 2 staffing. With that, I will stop. And if there are questions, I will take them now. And if people have individual questions about reopening, they can send it to this address as well.
I open it up to the committee for questions. Anybody?
Me.
Yes, Sarah.
Thank you. Dr. Bryce, when you initially talked about the testing, I was under the impression that it was that it was not going to be a one-off, that it was going to be hosting a site. And I think on the slide, I didn't have time to read the whole thing, but those were the two options available. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so initially I made the decision that we were going to host the community event. But now after we have negotiated with RIDO, our school system attorney has negotiated with RIDO, we are going to look to add option 1 as well as a focus on athletes.
Okay, so what you want to look at doing is having the one-off event and then regular testing of student athletes?
Correct.
Okay. What was the reason for choosing the one-off community event versus?
Yeah, so first and foremost, the one-off community event is actually hosted by RIDO, and so they handle all the logistics. Okay. Hosting at individual schools means that school staff is responsible for handling much of the logistics, and there is a concern about whether or not school staff have the capacity to do that with all of the other things that they are responsible for. And
okay,
so
got it.
We've worked through some of the requirements, the reporting requirements and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes. Karen, go ahead.
I just had a couple of questions in terms of, so for the quarantine, I know you said it was decided to go with the 10 days. Is the 7-day with the testing on day 5 or later not an option? And I'm only asking just because of the challenges with staffing.
Yeah, so it is not the option that the district is supporting. And I would mention that if the individual, however, is asymptomatic and gets a PCR, then we would be fine with them returning. But the problem is that by the time you get the PCR, if you get the PCR on day 5, you're probably not going to get the PCR back by day 7, right? So it's going to take you into, a couple of more days. And so that's why what we're saying to our community is we're focusing on 10 days, and 10 days if you're a close contact. However, if you get a PCR, and I see Ellen, and I don't know, I just want to make sure that I'm not misspeaking, but the conversation that we had was, if you get a PCR, then in your PCR, if you are asymptomatic, get a PCR. If you're a close contact, you could, my nurses, okay, let me stop. Nurses, help.
So
Ellen, Aaron,
all close
Julie,
contacts need to quarantine for 10 days. So if you came in contact with someone that was positive for COVID and you do not live with them, from the last point you were with that person, you would quarantine for 10 days. If you actually live with the individual that tested positive for COVID-19, you would be quarantining for the 10 days that the person that is positive is isolating, and then you would quarantine for an additional 10 days. So technically, the household contacts are in quarantine that are not positive are on quarantine for 20 days. Now, if somebody is sent home from school or work, has symptoms of COVID-19, probable symptoms, and they go for a test, they have to provide us with a PCR before they can return to work or school.
and they can, and if they provide us with the PCR, then they could come back earlier than the 10 days.
Yeah, because we're not going to quarantine or isolate somebody with probable symptoms. They're going to go get tested. If they're negative and they provide us with the PCR, then they can return. We can accept a rapid or PCR for individuals that have traveled that would like to test out of quarantine.
But if we're talking about someone who's been recognized as a close contact, regardless of whether they live with someone or not, we have opted for the 10 days of quarantine because, unbeknownst to a lot of you, is that we have seen cases where our close contacts who were on a 14-day quarantine by the previous standards have come back on day 10 or 11 being positive. And the nurses voiced their concerns about not being comfortable with letting students back into the classrooms on the day after their 7th day. So what would happen is you test on day 5, which is, yes, I understand the rates of infection, we all do. And the viral load is seen to be highest at somewhere around day 5. So you test at day 5, you're awaiting your PCR, which gets back around day 7 because it takes 48 hours. And then you're allowed back in at day 8. And there's this whole feeling of being not comfortable with what we've seen, that we've had kids that were close contacts coming back at day 10, 11, and 12 as being positive. That being said, RIDO has written that we could have 2 different sets of standards. We could have students could be asked to wait until day 10. Staff could come back.
Okay. I have another question about the testing. I know, Dr. Bryce, you said you were waiting on RIDO. Who is the contact person for the testing, and who will facilitate the training and the whole rollout of the program?
Yes, so RIDO has divided the entire state into pods, as you know. So we have our own pod, and they would be the ones that would facilitate all of those, the training, the logistics. We would identify someone. The point person for us is Ellen. And so when I first signed us up, I emailed Ellen and said, I just signed the district up to host an event. I need you to be the point person. And she has agreed to that.
So when we agreed to be testers, what has come out is that they will train 6 people within each school district. And those trainers could go back and train other individuals. It doesn't have to be a medical person that actually administers the test. In fact, at my level in particular, because I have secondary students, I could stand there and observe them doing the swab themselves. Or I could have Erica, who's my nurse tech, who's our athletic trainer, could observe them. At the lower levels, it might be a little trickier because obviously they're young children, and other than their finger, they don't want to stick anything else up their nose. But it can be done. It doesn't have to be strictly medical personnel. But it does have to be people that are willing to do it. And then there's the documentation process that goes with it, because everybody that we do screen, it's my understanding, and we haven't had full training, that everybody will have to be, that information will have to be uploaded to a document within the Rhode Island Department of Health. So then we have everybody that's been tested, and then we have everyone that's returned positive. I know for a fact, because this is Rhode Island, that the athletic director in the town of South Kingston did spend 4 hours testing all his student athletes before the winter season started. So it can be done. It's manpower, it's logistics, it's whether or not we get the okay to start just randomly, and parents' permission, start testing their students in the schools, start testing our teachers.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a lot. So I'm just curious because, I mean, you have your whole high school like workload, and then there's this on top of that. So there's definitely not, I mean, there's no nurse leader in the district, is there?
Karen, that's a loaded topic of conversation.
So here's what I would say. So certainly I have the utmost confidence in all of our nurses. But if there's a medical situation, I probably call them, not even probably, I call Ellen first, or I email Ellen first. So she's the first on my list. And then I work my way through the rest of the nurses. And they all are the consummate professionals. But I think, Karen, to your point about it's the reason why I selected option 2 to host the community event. And I was leery of selecting option 1, the hosting the school-based events, because of the amount of paperwork and data input that we would have to do in order to do those things. I think based on some conversations that I've had today with our school attorney, that we've worked through some of those things. And so it appears that we will have some level of flexibility in terms of the implementation that makes it a little bit more feasible for us to do it.
Okay, because you have your nurse assistant just this year because of COVID, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so normally, Ellen, would it just be you at the high school with, I'm sorry, how many students are there?
Well, right now there's 976, who's counting.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yes, Karen, my entire career at Mount Hope High School, it's just been me.
That's a lot.
And that's a small number. We have been when I started, we were almost 1,200 students.
Okay. Yeah. But that's that's a lot with a pandemic going on. That's my point. And I'm just wondering if there's going to be a need for more help along the way.
Can I be frank though? In this particular, what we've seen this year for me, and I will speak for me at the high school. Parents are doing their due diligence. They are keeping their kids home, and I'm putting it off to probably because my kids are very vocal. You know, they're teenagers. They'll tell their parents if they don't feel good, and they'll not be sent to school. I don't have the volume of visits I have that I've had for years in my office this year. I was fearful when we started about what this was going to look like. I can only speak for me. I can't speak for, I know the middle school was pretty tough, and I don't know if it still is now that we've returned, but it was extremely busy there. But for me at the high school, I've been fortunate, and the number of visits coming through, I don't have the number of daily medications. So it's kind of, I think it's very so much in the flux. I don't think we can base everything on this particular moment in time on how we're going to go forward. I think we just need to get us through until we're all vaccinated, until we see something different.
Okay. I appreciate the update.
Thanks, Ellen. Oh, did you have more questions, Karen? Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I meant that I appreciate the update of the daily, what the nurse's office looks like on a daily basis.
Remember, that's only the high school though.
Right.
Well, I think that the nurses do an amazing job with all the children that they have to service every day, and particularly in this time in a pandemic. But I understand why we've pulled back a bit from the first set of plans. I don't think are equipped to do all of that right at this minute. So Dr. Bryce has been talking, as he said, with our attorney, and I think that they've got a plan in place. So we'll just look to what they have to say in the future. Yes, Dr. Bryce, is that?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to go into executive session. So I need, Mr. Cabral, I need for you to read the executive session. Do you have it in front of you? But you're muted. It isn't often we get to hear you muted.
It isn't often you hear me say I do either. All right. I've only said that once. All right, continuing. Executive session recess to executive sessions pursuant to RIGL 42-46-5A for discussion of the following. 42-46-5A1, job performance of an individual. Said person was notified in advance in writing and was advised that they may require that the discussion be held in open session. Number 2, 42-46-55A2, legal advice and potential litigation.
I need a motion for that, please.
I make that motion.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Ladies and gentlemen, we will come back into open session. We will motion to seal the executive minutes, and there may be possible action on the budget schedule and district organization. I'm not sure whether there will or not, but it's on our agenda just in case we need to do it. So thank you very much for everybody who came tonight. And if anybody has any questions that didn't get answered, please contact Dr. Bryce, and I'm sure that he will get back to you with whatever it is you need to do. All right. See you guys in executive session. Thanks. Hello, everybody. Are we ready? Everybody here?
Yep.
All right. We're back in open session, and I need a motion to seal the executive session minutes from January 11th, 2021.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We are going to take action on the budget schedule. I need a motion to suspend the policy to allow the budget to go to the budget subcommittee after the 15th of January.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. There will be no discussion and no action on future plans for district organization. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ah, we did it. All right. Thanks, guys.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.